Hi, everybody. Lindsay here. I'm just waiting for Alex to pop on the phone here. I've got one attendee. It looks like Hillary's on. And we've got a couple others popping on in a few minutes. Looks like we've got John Barrett. Hi, guys. How you doing? Good to see all of you. And this is going to be really amazing. This is awesome. So happy to have you. I'm just waiting for Alex to pop on the phone here. I'm just gonna really quick give him a ring real fast and just make sure, oh, we're only 4 minutes before, it looks like. Let me just see who I've got in the room yet. Let's give him a little text really quick. It's good to see you guys out there today. So excited. It should be any minutes. He's only like 3 minutes out from the call. Let me just see who I've got. I've got Barrett here. Oh yeah, hi there. So you guys are gonna want to use the chat to ask questions. You're gonna want to see, you'll be able to, hopefully you can all see the screen okay, pretty well there. It looks like my screen's a little bit foggy. There we go. I'm kind of dirty here. Hold on one second. I'm just gonna put my video on. Hang in there for like 1 minute, guys. I'll be right back. Hi guys, I'm back. And let me just see if I've got, I'm just gonna allow you guys to talk. I've got Adrian, Frederick, Hillary, and John. And I've got you guys on mute for a second. I'm just waiting for Mr. Alex to come on here. Welcome in, guys. Happy to have you here. And we are just getting ready to broadcast live right now to Facebook. So hopefully we will have no issues with that. Can you guys hear me? You can talk if you want.
Yes, I can.
Adrian rustling around in the background.
You're unmuted now.
I'm unmuted. I see Frederick. Hi, Frederick. I see Hillary, John Barrett. I see Alex just came in. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Lindsay. Can you hear me now?
I can, and I can even see you. How are you?
Good. Now, can you actually see me or just a profile photo?
I can see your gorgeous picture.
That doesn't clarify anything. Okay, give me 1 second.
Just your picture. I don't see you moving around.
Right.
Did you guys have any trouble getting on the webinar?
No.
It's good. Alex, are you going to be wanting to share your screen?
Yes, I can. And just to let you know, I don't have a video option for some reason right now. So there's no option to enable video, and I don't see an option to share my screen right now either.
Okay, hold on. Let me just triple that really quick. I think I have to make you a host. So give me 1 second.
Sure.
Oh, you know what? Oh, let's see here. Promote to panelists. There we go. Okay, I just made you a panelist. Alex, you should be able to share your screen now. Did that work out?
Looks better. Let's see.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
And there you are, back in front of the red curtain. Hi.
Back in the dungeon. Hi, good to see you.
How are you?
Good, thanks. It's a sunny day here near Toronto.
Is it?
Too bad we can't go outside. Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Well, hello, everybody. This is John Barrett, as in Grinning Barrett. How you doing, Mr. Franken?
Good, John. Good to see you again. And you're also in Ontario, are you not?
I'm a Canadian, eh?
Very good.
Love the Canadians. We love the Canadians. John, and you should definitely know each other. John is like an incredible ex-Navy SEAL, crazy, amazing, awesome angel to the inventors, and has tons of them. And he's kind of an engineer himself too. So you guys would be best friends, Alex.
Yeah, I'm not a Navy SEAL. I was a naval operator.
Naval operator, sorry.
Yeah.
One of those SEALs operators.
Yeah, I had a problem with swimming. I failed my drown proofing.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Well, we've got a lot of people coming on. We got Connie just came in. We got Mary Ellen. I'm going to just pretty much pass this over to you, Alex, and let you get started. I'm going to spotlight Alex. If everybody could just keep your stuff on mute. If you want to ask questions, please put them down in the panel, in the chat box. We're not going to use the Q&A because it's just harder. We'll just go through the chat box. But at the end, we'll actually let you guys go audio with Alex too, because there's not as many people on the webinar. I think there's more people joining live. So I'm going to mute myself and hand it over to Alex. And actually, real quick, sorry, let me just introduce Alex. I forgot to say who you are. Everybody kind of already knows who you are. But Alex Frakking is our resident research expert. He is pretty much the secret to my personal sauce out there in being successful at marketing. Alex is going to walk you guys through an incredible opportunity to take this product to market, take any product to market, and how you can do it by using research. This is an awesome opportunity to be able to do this. And what I want you guys to be thinking with is your best mechanism of how to look at the research that he's giving you from the perspective of being able to pitch your product. So think about the research in the way of what are you going to learn and how are you going to apply that to your product, okay? All right, here we go. Have fun, Alex. You're on.
already know that for nearly 10 years, we've been doing research with HIT Laboratories on consumer products. And actually, right from the time of founding, it was Lindsay who infused HIT Laboratories with a lot of her knowledge on direct product sales. So that came from initial direct response, or DRTV, right? Direct response TV industry, regarding how people perceive um, how this was great was to almost replicate a live sales environment, but online, something which seems like a pretty good idea right now because there are no live sales actually happening. So it's not exactly the same, of course. In a live sales situation, you can see people, you can see, as Peter was saying the other day, I think many of you were here, you can see when the penny drops, so to speak. You can see how they're responding, what questions they're asking. And with online surveys in general, you can get a lot of detailed information, but you can't actually see the person, obviously. I should mention there are some online research types where you can see the people, but that's not something we specialize in.
Alex,
Yes.
your audio is really muffled and really weird. I'm not sure. Guys, make sure when you're in here, you're all muted if you can. I don't know if that was anybody else, but you just kind of came in.
One second. What I should say in advance, the issues with Wi-Fi. I think a lot of people are online these days. Give me just 1 second. I'm switching connection. It may cut out for 5 seconds. Okay. Okay, how's that? I see on the chat some people say about 30s were cut out. How's the audio right now? Is there any feedback in the chat or any panelists?
You're just fine.
Great. Okay. So basically, I was saying the last 30 seconds when it was breaking up, thanks for your patience. I was saying that Lindsay infused the research with a lot of live testing kind of ideas to make it almost replicate a live testing environment. But what I really want to talk about today, and I think what most people are interested in, is how you can actually test your product concepts on your own. So using DIY for DIY and also are. That's why they, as much as you can save money and learn while doing, I think that's a really good idea. So what I'd like to do then is go into some graphical examples really quickly, and then we'll cut right to questions and answers. And let me share my screen. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. So we should be there. Sorry. All right, so hopefully everyone can see this. So we'll jump right into some examples of what you can do on your own for home testing. Here's a product that was tested, and this was an innovative kind of a pants, basically a men's pants, and it had a few different innovative features which made it stand out. But the inventor had a specific problem, which was that they could only order limited inventory, and they wanted to know which kind of color or pattern to do it in. So we actually tested a lot of different patterns and colors. This is a sample of 3 of what they thought would be the most popular ones. And this is a problem that a lot of people have, of course. When you have a product, you need to manufacture in a minimum order quantity. Now, if you're already selling online, such as on Amazon, you can actually see which colors people are ordering more, but it would take several hundred purchases before you actually have enough data to make a confident decision which is the best product. And of course, you have to manufacture the advance. So how can you test before you spend the money on manufacturing? And it's basically doing online testing just like this. So this is very simple. We found that the best color in this case was black, and that turned out to be correct. Here's another example. Some of you may have seen this last time. This is kind of a lint roller. Again, 2 colors, lots of colors you can test it in. We tested all of these colors. And the best color was actually, as you can see here, was black again. And actually going in, we thought a lot of people, this is very interesting. I know last presentation, some people asked, have we ever had situations where the test results show things that were counterintuitive or that were just very not expected? And going into this test, we thought that the transparent one, which is not pictured here, would be the most appealing one because it would let people see when the lint is full and, you know, the condition of the roller brush. We found that the black one was actually the most appealing by far. Here's another example. So this is a kind of a travel pillow, and same problem, a lot of different colors, could suit a lot of different markets, a lot of different personas. And the one overwhelmingly that was most popular for travel purposes was B, which is the black option. Here's another example, pink patterns. We tested this. This is label packaging. Okay, so I don't really want to get too much into this. We'll go right back into why. So in my opinion, the most important reason, your own or any method you have, is to try and avoid making the most significant mistake, right? Or the worst case outcome as an inventor, which is, in my opinion, manufacturing a product. So going to wherever you happen to go, getting a minimum order quantity, perhaps that's 1,000 items, putting them in your garage or paying a warehouse, and then realizing that the market doesn't want to buy them. You talk to reps, the reps aren't interested for reasons that you didn't appreciate before. The consumers aren't interested because the price is too high, the color is wrong, it lacks certain features, and then you're basically stuck with this, plus all the expenses of not just manufacturing, but of marketing and everything else that goes with it. So one of the best ways you can do that today is by testing the product online for viability testing. So that's reason number 1, viability. Reason number 2 is for optimization and improvement. So even after a product is good, that is to say it's market viable, you can probably sell enough of it to at least break even and hopefully make a profit. So the basic definition of viable. You know that there are still ways you can change the product to make it better for a certain market, better for a mass market, maybe changing the price, so price option, changing the name, changing the colors, changing the feature sets, changing the positioning. There's a lot of things you can optimize and test. So that's reason number 2. And the third reason is often underlooked at the initial stages. And this is basically for attracting partners. So this situation, which we've seen many times, is when an innovator has a product concept and they have a certain path in mind, but along the way, they realize they're going to need partners. These could be marketing partners who will work maybe initially at a very low cost or for some, maybe for equity in the company. They need to get manufacturing partners of different types, and they very well may need investors as well. So how do you convince these people to get on board with your idea? How do you show them that it's not just viable, but actually a good idea? Not just a good idea, but it has to be one of the best or the best alternative or choices that those people have. That is, to invest in you has to be the best choice. So by showing them research, which clearly shows a market demand and the product is viable, this is a very good way to get investment and to get partners. So let's go into doing it yourself, which is the key thing here. So I think many of you have probably tried doing research yourself. Friends and family research would be the most basic type, right? Where you're asking your friends and family, hey, what do you think of this idea? Or you're sharing something on Facebook or something. That's a really good idea. But there are pros and cons to doing it yourself. So pros, first of all, is that it can be a much cheaper way to test than going through any company or anything like that. I think that's pretty obvious. And the other advantage is you get to learn how to make surveys. So this may be your first product. I know for me, it's product code, and you realize this may not be your last product. It makes sense to invest in yourself, in learning the basics of how to do research. So at least you can get that first step done. Those are the pros, but the cons are that, well, chiefly, if you do it yourself, there's low credibility on the research result, on the end product. And this is because you've done it yourself. You've done the sampling, that is the recruiting, so they may not entirely believe the accuracy of yours for various reasons. Maybe just because you didn't analyze it correctly or you don't have that much experience. The second downside of doing it yourself is that there's no benchmarking. So this is something important to think about. Let's say you do an online survey and you do a very simple question, like, let's just say, would you buy this product? Yes or no. It's not a very good question to phrase it that way, but it's an example. And you find out that 30% of people, 30% of the respondents say yes, they would buy the product. So the question is that a good result or a bad result? And you don't actually know, because maybe a good result would be 80% saying yes. So unless you've done similar tests on similar products against products that have actually succeeded in the market, it's really hard to benchmark the results. Okay, so let's get into the most important thing on how to do it yourself step by step.
Hey,
And I'm
Alex.
just checking-
Yeah,
yes.
I'm having a little bit of trouble with your connection again. It seems like if you could just slow down, maybe talking a little, and I don't know if it's your gestures, maybe your camera, maybe, I don't know if it's your camera, maybe if we turn your camera off and maybe use the screen.
Okay.
How's it going in chat, guys? Are you able to hear Alex okay? No. No, for short
No.
bursts.
Yeah, it's breaking up a bit on my side too.
You think
Okay,
it's-
tell you what I'll do is I'll disable the video first to see if that's
So a couple of things, guys, for you on the other side, when you're doing webinars, I'll come back on, you figure out your connection for a second and I'll talk for a minute. So, hey guys, so a few things happen when we're doing webinars sometimes. Sometimes it's related to the connection of the person that you are dealing with, and sometimes it's related to your own personal connection. So all of you might want to check really quick your Wi-Fi router, if it's on, active, and working. You may want to plug it in and unplug it again. You may want to sign back out and sign back in. Unfortunately, right now, with everybody in the world using webinar technology, sometimes this can be a problem because little infrastructures are not ready for this. The connection could be on your side. It could also be on Alex's side. I'm experiencing some with his, but it's not as bad. I can hear well. For those of you that are signing in from overseas, you may be in trouble just based on that. Also call back in and listen as well. That might be better. You might get a better chance there. And also if you disable any audio and put yourself on mute, that helps if you're not already. But yes, voice only is sometimes the best. So getting Alex's video back up and running real quick. Alex, you still there?
Yeah. I'm still here. I think it'll come in a bit better now. I was able to reposition this. Yeah, so
Hold on.
yeah, we'll just keep the audio for now. And this is a problem that a lot of people are having across the continent right now. South America, North America, is the networks are just getting overloaded. I blame all the people watching Netflix. Okay, so let's just keep it here. And this is nice because I can see actually the chat stream as it is.
Okay, can everybody, let's just get a little sound off real fast, just make sure. Mary, can everybody hear us? Chat, if you can.
How's this audio going right now? I'm seeing nicely, yes.
Awesome.
All right.
Also, guys, make sure you disable, if you disable like Facebook and disable like anything else on your screen, that helps a lot too. Okay. All right, I'm gonna let you go back to it. Sorry guys, we'll get it down.
Okay, so again, if there's any questions, just put them in the chat box. I can see that as I go. So one of the first questions that I understand is naturally asked is, what is the right questionnaire software to use when you're designing your survey, or what would be called your questionnaire. And I think probably everyone here has heard of SurveyMonkey. So SurveyMonkey, I don't know, well over 10, 12 years ago maybe, it's very popular. And this will definitely do the job. Just something to be aware of is that the free account is not adequate because it's limited to 10 questions per questionnaire. So you need at least the $25 a month basic plan. But SurveyMonkey will definitely allow you to add any questions that you can think of different question formats. And they also have a few templates, which could give you a bit of a head start on creating a market research type questionnaire. JotForm is called, so this one's called JotForm, G-O-T form, F-O-R-M. This is a really good option, possibly better than SurveyMonkey, because it's also easy to use, but their free plan gives you unlimited questions per survey. So that's a pretty good go-to choice. Google Forms, also very popular. There's really no problem with Google Forms. You can add unlimited questions, unlimited forms. There are no limitations to it. It's easy to set up the questions. It's only that the conditional questions are difficult and limited. So conditional questions, or kind of logic branching, it's called sometimes. This is where if somebody answers, let's say, yes to question 1, then you show them an alternate question 2, maybe a follow-up question or something. So Google Forms is not so great at doing that. Okay, so next question is the sample size. So when you do a survey, obviously you need people to respond, and how many people should you be aiming for? So this touches on some statistical issues. Basically, bottom line is you're aiming for at least 300 respondents to be an acceptable target. And that is in order to represent the US adult population, or even a large segment of that population, to the 90% confidence level with a 5% margin of error, basically. So if you get 300 respondents, you're good. Any fewer than 300 respondents, and your margin of error increases. So that means that there's just more uncertainty on the responses that you do get. I think it goes without saying that if you ask a very small sample, like 30 people, the results aren't really valid for about anything. It just should be considered feedback or maybe anecdotal information. Okay, so let's talk about how to get an audience, and what, especially from a cost perspective, what's the most cost-effective way? So, well, the most cost-effective way is using your social network. So this means posting something on Facebook, maybe Twitter, Instagram, whatever you can do, or wherever your largest network lies, and asking for feedback. You'd have to include a link to your survey, maybe JotForm or SurveyMonkey form. Now, the big problem with this, of course, is, well, 2 things. One is that the response rate is very low. Now, we've seen people try this in different ways, and the typical result is about a 5% response rate per 100 connections. And that would be a good result, like something on Facebook. So if you have, let's say, 100 friends on Facebook, you might get about 5 responses completed. So to get 50 responses, you need about 1,000 friends on Facebook. So if you have a very large social network, it could work. The second problem is that there's clearly a lot of bias in that. So you have what's called selection bias is one, where the people who are responding to your call for help and completing the survey, there's something different about that group from the 95% of other people who didn't. And so that introduces a form of bias. And also they all know you in some way, which also introduces different types of bias. So it's not really acceptable for a proper survey. You wouldn't really want to show this to an investor, for example, but for your own uses, it's fine. Second thing is a SurveyMonkey audience. So SurveyMonkey is very well known for having forms, but they also have what they just call audience. And this is where you can purchase respondents and then have them directed to your form. So it's pretty easy to set up. They have okay targeting options. You can't target too specifically, that is by behaviors or too much on demographics, but it will get the job done for a lot of people. The cost works out to about, you could estimate it to be about $4 per respondent. maybe $3 to $4 per respondent if you keep the number of questions low. So this is true with all kinds of sampling or recruiting for respondents, is that the more questions you include, the higher the cost becomes, just because it takes people longer to do the survey and your completion rate will be lower. So basically with SurveyMonkey, you're looking at, if you have about 300 respondents, maybe it costs about $1,000 at a minimum to do that. Okay, so, right. So another option, and let me know if you have any questions about that, about SurveyMonkey in the chat. Another question, or sorry, another option is called river sampling. So this is, a lot of people like this idea. This is where you basically would run your own ads. So on Facebook or Google or wherever you want, and run your own ads asking people to complete a survey, and then perhaps incentivizing that in some way as well on survey completion. And this can be good. It can be a valid way to do it. The main problem is it's expensive. You can count on about $5 per respondent if you're doing it good, if you're doing a good job at that. So it's a little bit more expensive than SurveyMonkey. And can you tell SurveyMonkey, so I'm just reading a question, can you tell SurveyMonkey to stop when you reach your goal of responses? Yeah, so if you're talking about buying the audience, so using SurveyMonkey paid audience, you just actually purchase a certain number. So like, for example, 300 responses, and that's all you're going to get. If you are doing your own survey and you're putting that link out, I do believe it's an option that it simply has a maximum, and then it will say something like, sorry, this form is closed to any additional people after that. So another option here is email list. So this is a really good option too. If you have a big email list, likely because you've been selling products already, right? You have an existing product line. Maybe it's from a different, a totally different product line or different company or something. And you can actually email these people. Now, obviously there's some legal considerations to think about, making sure you have permission to email them. But beyond that, you can expect about a 1% to a 5% response rate from your email list. So for every 100 people you email, you might get 1 to 5 responses, depending on a lot of things, including incentivization of completion. So basically this means to get about 300 respondents or 300 responses completed, you would need about 10,000 emails in your list. Okay. So next question is, or next topic here. Now you have a kind of a platform, an idea of which platforms you could use. You have an idea about the size of the respondents. You want about 300 at a minimum. You know how to get an audience, so you have some ideas. And now, what are the questions you should ask? So we could talk about this for hours, and that would be fine with me because it's really interesting. But I can tell you some of the types of questions that have given the most insights with consumer product testing. And one of the first ones is, or I would say the first one in a lot of cases, is a simple feature ranking. So feature ranking means, well, let's take an example. Let's say you have a product, and it could be a simple product, like let's say a toaster. And it sounds like a toaster only has one feature, it makes toast. But if you break it down, you could easily come up with at least 20 features. Features include what it's made of. Is it stainless steel or some other material? And what's the benefit of that material, right? Is it dual voltage? Does it have a timer? There's all these questions. So the question from a marketing perspective and a development perspective is, one, which features should you actually include in the product? Because you can only obviously focus on a limited number. And two, which features do you focus on in your marketing? So which are your hero features? So you can almost imagine the retail packaging of a product, and typically a retail packaging only lists about 3 key features, at least on the front of the packaging. And the question is, which are those 3 key features? And it doesn't really matter what you think are the most important. It really matters what the audience or your market thinks. So a note on feature ranking is that, sorry, do we have a comment or something? I'm getting some noise. No? Okay. Sorry, just one second. All right. So a note on the feature ranking is that you should try and structure it as an actual ranking. So that imagine you have 10 features and you ask your respondents to actually order them by the importance of that feature to them. So what I don't mean is to select like to ask a question like, how important is this feature to you from 1 to 10? And they select 5, 6, 7, 8.
Alex, can you
Yes,
just make me the host again real quick so I can fix the stream? Just
sure.
go up to my face.
Yeah, I see it. I got it right there.
Thank
Okay,
you.
should be done.
You'll still be panelist. Okay, thanks.
Good. So when you're doing a feature ranking question, you actually need the respondents to physically rank, like this is the number 1 feature, this is the number 2 feature, the number 3 feature. And then you can do a bit of statistical analysis, very basic, in order to figure out what that means on the whole for all the people. Now, the reason that's important is because if you just ask them, how important is this feature for you, 1 to 10? Most people are just going to put 10 for all the features, right? They're going to say, yeah, that's important. Stainless steel, that's important. Yeah, it has a timer, that's important. And the end result won't be actionable for you. Okay, so that's feature ranking. The second, well, one of the most important questions is objections. So this is where you're asking people not what they like about the product, but why they would not buy the product. Oftentimes, there is a specific reason, just 1 or 2 reasons why people do not buy a product. So you really need to figure out what those are. And the reason why is 2 main things. One is you may be able to change the product to avoid that objection. So let's say if we're talking about a toaster, maybe people don't like stainless steel for some reason. I don't know. So that would be good to know. And the second reason is because even if you need to include that feature, you need to know how to counter their objections from a marketing perspective. So preemptively counter their objections. So maybe let's just say, I'm not sure why, but let's pretend people don't like stainless steel toasters, but you need to make it stainless steel anyway. And you need to put in your marketing preemptively a counter to the stainless steel objection by perhaps promoting the benefits of stainless steel, talking about how it's safe and sanitary, it's easy to clean, it looks beautiful, it goes with, all these benefits of stainless steel. So a third very important type of question is offer testing. So offer testing can be done in different ways, but basically this would be like showing someone a product and saying, hey, this is $19.99. Do you want to buy this product? But you can do it with different configurations. So for example, you can show one group of people, hey, this is, okay, let's talk about a toaster again. Seems to be the theme here. So you can say this toaster is, $99. It's $99 and it's this toaster. That's option A. Do you want to buy this toaster? And then you can craft a question to capture their purchase intent at that price level. But to another group of people, you can say, hey, this toaster is $129 and it comes with this bonus item, a kind of a toaster rack and a special, I don't know, thing that makes faces in toast or some patterns in toast or whatever your bonus item happens to be. And perhaps to a third group of people, you would show the toaster, but then you would say, well, it's only $79.99 instead of $99. So in that case, you're just changing the price. So here you have 3 different offers, right? The base product, you have the base product plus a bonus, and then you have the product at a lower price point. So this is great information to know. You could oftentimes find that a bonus item can significantly increase the perceived value with a marginal cost increase for you. That is a marginal cost of good increase. Now, the reason you'd want to test the product at 2 different price points, such as $99.99 and $79.99, is because you can get a sense of the price elasticity, which you probably remember as in just an economic term. And the idea is that all goods and services have a certain elasticity in price. And the basic theory is that the increase reduces the demand or reduces the quantity sold. So this is definitely true, but the degree of elasticity, it varies between products. So you may find some products are very price sensitive. If you just change the price by 10%, let's say you increase the price by 10%, you lose 50% of the sales volume. So that's really important to know. Other products, if you increase it by 10%, you may only decrease the sales volume by about, let's say, 5%, which means that it can tolerate a higher price point. So if you think about how you would ever learn this information without doing a survey of this type, it would be actually pretty hard to know. You'd have to roll this out into the market somehow, either online or in retail, and then you'd have to play with the pricing, which really can't be done, especially if you have partners, sales partners, channel partners. You just can't play around with the pricing in that way. So you're probably going to, your price will not be optimized unless you do the optimization early on. Okay, another type of question, very important, is benchmarking existing products or existing competition. So, okay, let's say we're talking about a toaster again. And let's say that you go out with one of your offer tests is a $99.99. Let's say you find that your purchase intent is something like, I don't know, let's say 20%. 20% of respondents are saying, yeah, I would likely purchase that product at $19.99. Well, you don't actually know if that's a good result or not, unless you're comparing it with something. So one technique you can use is to include in your survey a competing product. This, of course, assumes that you have a competing product or you have something similar, but you could just go on Amazon if you don't. Find something that's actually selling well. And you can tell roughly the sales volume by looking at the number of reviews. And then you can just copy that picture, right? You can copy that picture from Amazon directly into your survey. You can copy the basic description into your survey. And then you can basically include that as an offer test on your survey at the same price point. And then you can see, okay, my product compared to this competing product, which we know sells well, how does the offer acceptance compare? If you find that 50% of people are saying they would buy the competing product and only 20% of yours, you know you have a problem. And this, again, is great information to bring to partners, such as investors or other partners, because then they can see this is a product that's on the market, it is selling well, they are making a profit, and our test results are better than their test results. So very good. Another way to do benchmarking is if you just have a big database of products that have been tested in the past. Now, I realize as a do-it-yourself situation, you probably won't. This is one of the reasons that we started at Laboratories almost a decade ago, was in order to build that database of products so that we could compare new products with past existing products and get a really quick idea of how they compare. And the next, and by the way, if anyone has any questions, it's a great time to put them in the chat window, because I'm going to move to a kind of a question and answer format in just a moment. So the final type of questions that are important is, I can't even talk about them because they're just custom. They're specific to each product being tested. These are often questions about how the market would intend to use the product. So they're behavioral type questions. So if we take the toaster as an example, one question we might have is a question about what size of things do people like to toast generally? Are they doing regular size slices of bread? Are they doing these thin kind of Weight Watcher bread? Are they doing bagels? Do they want to toast something else? Because maybe there's room in the market for this giant toaster that can toast a whole loaf of bread at once. I don't know, but you don't really know until you ask people both what they're doing and what they would like to do with the product. So typically for every product, there are at least 10 essential custom questions that you can create to really get a sense of how you can find an opening or a niche in your market for your product. Okay, so that's the most important questions. Now, how you can craft the questions, like specifically the wording and the response options, that gets very detailed. It is worth talking about, however, and this is a big challenge. So I think if there's one thing I would say to watch out for when you're doing a survey on your own, is to be very, very thoughtful about the questions you're asking. Big concern is questions are often misinterpreted. A question that you write and it looks obvious, like to you, the meaning is obvious. Well, when you survey hundreds of people across the country, and language patterns change across a large geographic region like the US, it's worse internationally, of course. and backgrounds and assumptions, all these change. So the question could be completely misinterpreted by some percentage of respondents. Another important thing is to make sure that the questions are, or I should say the responses are actually actionable by you. So the last thing you want is to write questions that sound really interesting, but when you get the results, you look at them and you say, I don't actually know what to do with these results. Like, we didn't really ask the right questions so that we could make the important decisions. So, so that's very important on the custom questions. So thinking about it very carefully. Another tip here is to do a pilot test. This is really important. In fact, it's the standard, of course, in market research, is when you create a new survey that you've never run before, in recognition that there are probably misleading or biased questions, confusing questions, all kinds of things. In recognition of that, you would do a pilot test first, which means using a limited sample size, probably 5% of your intended target size. So let's say at least 30 people, maybe 50 people, and then examine the results and look for any evidence that the questions were misinterpreted. And you can also follow up in the survey by asking the respondents, did you find anything confusing about this survey? Did you have any questions or recommendations and that kind of thing? And then that can, and probably will, in fact, save you a lot of money, because you fix those problems early on, and then you can do the full sample of 300 plus respondents. Okay, so there's a question here. What top 3 questions would I ask for my first survey for a new niche coffee I am starting? All right, okay, so the coffee as a product, right? So it's Sweet Mary's Coffee, sourced from Colombia. So that's a good question. So food items are interesting. They're slightly different from a lot of consumer products because they're consumables. So some of the questions you want to ask is, now, first of all, the first question is, how well do you know the coffee market or your intended coffee market? Because there is no coffee market, right? It's a lot of segmented market segments, right? So there's people who like organic of a certain type, people who make it in a French press, people who do this and that. So, and I'm not familiar with all the different markets, but probably you are. So if you're not familiar with the market very well, some of your questions may be to get information on that. Now, as a consumable product, one of the big questions would be, how likely are they, or on what schedule would they want to replenish? So this goes on the concept of auto shipment. So if you're doing a coffee product or any product which is a consumable, a really good idea, something I can strongly recommend, is to build your entire business around it being a continuity product. That is, there is no single purchase unless it's perhaps a trial pack, but it's all based on a monthly subscription. So really, you're trying to get that monthly subscription. You're going to auto ship it, and so you need to know from the people, how much do they want to get at a time? Do they want to get in bulk? Like, do they want to get 10 pounds of it at once, or just a small package? Do they want it weekly? Now, if, for example, fresh is a value proposition of your coffee, like fresh, ready-made for you, fresh from Colombia, then perhaps weekly deliveries would be a strong selling point.
Alex,
if not,
I just
maybe
wanted to ask you something too. When you're talking about this, there's a couple of our Instapreneurs that have like B2C type products, like through Facebook, YouTube. Like one of them is, she's a yoga instructor, and she's doing like the yoga, like 12 episodes of her doing yoga. There's some subscription model folks, like with regard to like the loyalty. I'm sure you're going on to talk about that, but just some people are product and some people are intangible. So if you could just kind of broaden the conversation, that's all. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and it's a good, like, all of these testing methods, because I realize many of you are, well, I could say all of you really are not just selling products. You are building a business, because a product is not a business. It's just something which is sold by a business. So you need to create a successful company. Lots of different products you can sell: virtual goods, right? Information products, subscription products, physical products. So all of these techniques actually work whether you're talking about a software company, like let's say it's a SaaS software company, or if you're selling subscription coffee. They're actually almost identical in how you set this up. So so basically this applies to a lot of you here. A question here is about Facebook marketing and targeting feature. So so I'm not sure if you mean in the question, this is for survey recruiting, like river sampling, running ads to get respondents, or for actually selling the product. But from
I think maybe what they're trying to say, if I can deduce, because I kind of know who that's coming from, is probably like, is there some survey questions we can ask to determine maybe more of the market to decide the size of the audience? So I'll just say one thing and then I'm going to pass it to you on that. What I would do personally is I would ask questions about who you think will buy the product, right? So one of the biggest things in doing surveys is we're asking the mass market, but we also want to ask, if we can, custom questions and feature questions that help us determine who the best market is, right? So I'll give you an example. If I'm selling my hair product, the Easy Combs product, right? Some marketers would say, well, you should try to ask people that are interested in doing their hair, right? Well, we all have hair. We're all probably interested in doing it. That really isn't a very good indication. It might be in a low level potentially, but who actually will buy that product, right? There's somebody who would buy an Easy Comb is someone who really doesn't have a lot of time, doesn't probably brush their hair, might shop at Walmart. It's a $15 product. So I might say, I want to know, do they shop at Walmart? Do they have 2 kids? Did they ever go to a beauty salon? These are kind of maybe better questions to create a customer model. So, and we can talk about that. Actually, we're going to do a very deep dive into this kind of thing when we do our Facebook weekend, which is coming up, Instapreneur Facebook, where we're going to talk about how we use Alex's research to actually drill down into that actual perfect customer. So I'm going to push that back to you, Alex.
Yeah, and it's a good point about Facebook. There's a lot you can do with it, and some of it is free. Here's a kind of guerrilla marketing research a technique which just doesn't cost a dime, which is that on your Facebook account, if you have a personal account, you can just create a business account from that, or an ad manager account. And there's lots of information on how to do that online. And create an ad campaign. And one of the first steps in the ad campaign is to select your targeting criteria. So this would be demographics, interests, behaviors, and all the criteria that Facebook has available. And when you go through that and you add each thing, Facebook shows you the size of the market that they can reach. So if you find that your product is very niche, right, and it's only for people who like A, B, C, D and live in a specific place, enter that into Facebook, into the ad manager. It will show you maybe there's, let's say, 10,000 people that they can reach. That gives you an idea. It's not a large market. It's a very small market, right? Maybe if you can target very effectively to that niche audience, it could work, but it's not a mass market product for sure. So that's free to do. Another thing you can do with Facebook before you manufacture anything to test the product is to do what's called dry testing. So imagine this for a moment. You take your product, let's say it's the toaster, or let's say it's a subscription coffee, and you create a page. Let's say it's on Shopify, but it could be on lots of different other platforms. And then you just start running ads to that page. And here's where you can split test your ads, split test your value proposition, split test the features in the ad, split test the images of the product, and you can right away tell where you're getting a higher click-through rate from people to the ads going to your page. And that's, it's not free, but it's relatively inexpensive. And in terms of cost for Facebook, if you've never done it, you're typically going to pay about $10 per 1,000 impressions. And it varies a lot depending on who you're targeting. $10 to $20 you can count on. So you can reach 1,000 people in the stream, in their feed, with a $10 investment. And if you're looking at cost per clicks, typically around 50 cents per click. So it's not very cost effective if you're looking for survey respondents, because every person who clicks on your ad, like for every 100 people who click on your ad, maybe only 1 to 5 people will complete the survey. So it becomes very expensive. But obviously for selling a product, it can work out. Okay, here's a question. Regarding books, can you test different titles, book covers, and story concepts? Does that affect people buying? Yeah, that's a great question, because you certainly can. And it doesn't have to be expensive at all. You can do this on a very minimum budget. It doesn't have to be Facebook. You can use Google or other ad platforms. And very simply, you're going to make that title of the ad the proposed title of the book. So you could test, let's say, 10 different book titles and just look at the click-through rates on that, which is a very strong indicator of interest. So click-through rates on Facebook and other platforms, usually they're around 1%, right? So about 1% of the people who see it will actually click the ad. And that gives you an idea of where you're starting from. Lots of people are testing this way. For example, I think a very popular book was, what was it called? 4-Hour Workweek. So 4-Hour Workweek was a book that came out perhaps 13 years ago. And I suspect many people here have read it. And the way that the author, Timothy Ferriss, created that title, which of course was a hit book, was he did ad testing on Google, but it could have been Facebook. It would have worked about the same. And he tested a lot of different title ideas, and he just saw this was the best title. He turned it into the book, and it worked, and it was a bestseller. So yeah, you can. Okay. What else do we have here? I'm just looking at the questions. I know we only have a few minutes left. Of course, if there's any questions, it's best to do this interactive. If anyone has a product idea, something that they're working on now, they're not sure how to phrase a question or what questions to ask, how to get the respondents, we can talk about that right now. I can talk a little bit more about benchmarking. So benchmarking, very important. I've said it a few times. And the way you can do it, right, there's two main ways you can do it. One is you can compare in the same survey, you can compare your product with your competing products or competitors' products and get a relative sense. This is a highly valid way of doing it. The results can be trusted quite well. Another way you can do it is by running sequential surveys. So that is building up a database over time. Now, that's actually not infeasible, even if you're just doing this yourself, because over time you may do several surveys anyway, right? You may do on your own 5, 10 surveys to test different things. And if each time you're testing another competing product, you are in effect building up a benchmarking database. Okay, so we've got a question about what 10 questions would you ask for that toaster? Well, yeah, so this depends, of course, on if you know about the market a lot already, and what you're thinking about. This is why it's kind of hard to answer in the abstract, because it really depends on why you're making this toaster. Are you just trying to compete on value, like make a really cheap toaster and beat out everyone on price? I suspect most of us are not trying to do that with their products. That's just not a good game that you can win for most of us. Probably we're looking at innovative features in the product, expanding the use of the product. So, so one question, yeah, would be about where are the pain points in the toaster? Is it that it takes too long, right? Too long to make your toast? Is it that it tends to burn? In that case, maybe some kind of a sensor features, like actually measuring the temperature of the toast or sensing smoke would be a good safety feature, right? Safety is another one. Safety is often a very big concern. And in ways that you might not expect, right? You can take fairly simple products, but people actually have large safety concerns. I can definitely say if anyone has a cosmetic product, we test a lot of cosmetic products and safety concerns are quite high because these are products which are interfacing directly with you, your skin or some other body part. And they use various chemicals. So people have a lot of concern about the ingredients, the quality, the safety of the ingredients. So, so basically questions like that for a toaster, it all depends on exactly what you're trying to create. Can questions be multiple choice with a sequence of priorities? So yeah, multiple choice questions are great. Of course, in order to create a multiple choice question, you often need to know what those options would be. So a classic example would be objections. So let's say it's a toaster again, and you want to know what are the respondents' objections to your toaster. And you want to list with multiple choice, let's say 5 or 10 different things. In order to create that list in the first place, you have to know kind of what the general objections would be to allow people to rank those. And if you omit one, yes, you could just include an other field, but that is introducing some bias because people are much more likely just to click a button than to actually type other. That's just a general thing that people do, something you have to keep in mind. So you can do multiple choice, but it's good to run pilot surveys first to get an idea of what those response options actually should be. And then with a sequence of priorities, yes. So you can do testing like this. I touched on this regarding feature ranking. So this is definitely how I recommend doing feature ranking. And that is maybe you have 10 product features. You don't want to ask the respondents to rate them like 1 to 10, how important they are. You actually want them to assign a point value to the importance of that feature, or physically rank them in order. Like they have to drag the feature number 1 on top, feature number 2 below it, and so on. Otherwise, the results tend to be not actionable for you. People tend to rate all the features as being important, and then you're left back at square one. Okay. So we touched on Facebook, good way to do it. You can do demographic, behavioral interest assessment to see the size of your target market. I would consider this kind of level 1 market research. It's like the first step, just to see how big the target market is. But just because there is a large market for, I don't know, toasters, then it doesn't mean they're going to buy your product, right? So level 2 is you really need to query that market with very specific questions and tests. So pretty much all the testing we've talked about here is viability testing and optimization or improvements. So those are 2 very important, very common one. There is a third type I should mention because this is also something everyone can do at home, and this is called home user testing. So this is where you would take your product, find other people, and you don't need many. For example, 20 people could be sufficient here. You give them the product, you allow them to use the product for a period of time, and then you are requesting that they fill in a questionnaire periodically. So for example, when they first receive the product, okay, let's say it's the coffee, right? So you send coffee to 20 people who you know are in the market, they're representative of your market. You may want to ask them a question, first of all, which is a pre-exposure question, or a first impression series of questions. So this would be before they open the package, before they taste the coffee, before they brew it. What are their perceptions of the packaging? Assuming that you're including branded packaging. Packaging could be innovative, different ways of opening, different ways of sealing it. How easy is that to figure out? What about the branding and so on? And then what about the process? How does it smell when they're brewing it? How does it taste? Obviously, what's the aftertaste like? And what you want to focus on these home user tests, you want to focus on questions that at the end you can turn into a claim. So one claim that would be potentially good for coffee would be something like, let's say, 90% of customers, or 90% of customers, let's say, preferred this brand to their previous favorite brand, right? So this indicates a switching potential, which is an important concept in marketing if there's competing products. Another one would be 95% found this coffee had a very pleasing aftertaste, let's say, or whatever you think is important to your target market, right? What about freshness, if that's a value proposition, right? Maybe you'll get a result, something like 83% of 83% of consumers found or felt this coffee was fresher scent, fresher taste, overall fresher than the leading brand that they're used to. These claims are really good when you're launching a product because they really speak to things which the consumers who are buying from home or even in retail really cannot assess themselves. And they don't want to take the word of the company, like what's on the packaging, because we all assume that the companies are just going to promote their product in the best possible light. They're going to say everything is great. They want to know what actual consumers like them are saying. And early on in the product life, you won't have the reviews and online testimonials to rely on. So when you don't have reviews, you don't have, 4.8 stars, and you don't have hundreds of testimonials, you have to rely on something like user testing. But user testing is actually very valuable even beyond that, because even if you had lots of reviews and testimonials, user testing can be used very effectively in advertising. And you see it all the time with things like cosmetics. The major cosmetic brands are using perceived claims, right? So they're using those claims from home user testing and other sources to promote their product. Now, of course, there is a legal component of this too. You need to make sure when you do home user testing and you're using those claims, the test has to be conducted in a proper scientific manner. You can do it yourself. There's no reason you can't do it yourself. But the reason it's important is because you could be challenged on those claims. Likely the challenger would come from a competitor, let's say a competing coffee company, and they would, let's just say it's Folgers, and suddenly you get a, knock on the door, so to speak. You get a letter from Folgers saying, hey, you can't say this, like that everyone prefers your coffee. We want to see how you tested that. We want to see how you substantiated that claim. So you definitely want to make sure you do it properly. Maybe this means consulting with someone who's done it before, just to make sure you're doing it properly, but it's totally feasible, something you can do on your own. So that's called home user testing. There's different terminology for it, but that's what we call it here. Okay, what else? I see we're out of time at 6 o'clock on the East Coast. So what do we have? Any other questions? Anyone on the panel, if you have any questions, just please unmute and let me know. Anyone on the, thank you. Yeah, okay. How many people do we test with?
Excuse me, Alex, I do have a couple of questions. This is Barrett speaking. I am partners on a product, and we have the product now. We do have a Facebook, and we do have a web page. We do have some work to do it on both pages. I understand that. But this product has sold, and also it's won a gold award in the Invented trade show for it and stuff like that. So we're trying to move it forward. What's your best suggestion on how to move it forward with surveys and stuff like that? And also, do I get a better price if I use you because I'm a Canadian, or what? I'm just
yeah. Well,
and talk about the professional aspect of marketing and what the cost is, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. Yeah. So, so on the first part of the question, what are some things you can do? This is the interesting thing about research, is that I find you have to do it no matter what. And the reason why is because at the beginning, you want to do research to know you're going in the right direction, or at least to make sure you're not pursuing with a bad product idea. But then even if your product is successful and you're selling okay, you always want to improve the product, right? Naturally, you always want to sell more, have a higher profit margin, in which case you have to turn to some market research also to figure out how do you do that. So sooner or later, it kind of needs to be done. So in your case, it really depends on what are your challenges. Like, are you trying to expand the market size, by adding a broader breadth of features, or are you trying to increase your profit margin by narrowing down the features and only including those which are important? Branding is another huge one, right? It's very, very, very common that a company has to rebrand after a few months because they realize their initial idea of who the market is and what their product means to that market was a little bit off. So rebranding can bring that back into alignment. And yes, you can test for brands, product names, brand attributes, and so on in products. So unfortunately, I can't say much more about that because it depends what you'd like to do, but we can certainly discuss that further, later offline or with Lindsay or whatever you prefer. On the second issue of cost, so I should say we don't actually sell, HIT Laboratories doesn't sell the research directly to innovators. And there's a number of reasons why we don't, but one of the key reasons is that setting up the research properly, like getting the right questions and working that process through, takes a fair bit of work and needs to be done with a marketing partner. and then analyzing the results. Now, we do analyze the results, like we produce a very nice report with all the graphs and charts you'd expect, but still it needs to be interpreted with respect to that product's plan and strategy. And so these are best done with a research partner. So in this case, Lindsay is the exclusive research partner for direct response products that we have for HIT Laboratories. So everything goes through her. I can say that, of course, it is a very good pricing that goes that's available to her. Because of that, we have sold directly to larger companies, but we have to charge a lot more because large companies are paying typically $50,000. They're okay to spend $50,000 for a research package, right? So that's just not acceptable for basically any innovator, and I would never recommend spending anywhere near that amount. So you want to get it at a fraction of that price. There's another question.
Something to just add to that, guys. The reason why Alex and I are doing this is because we decided to kind of do Instapreneur and put out our private, very secret testing mechanism that, again, Alex, myself, John, Peter, many of the kind of early founders, if you will, of Instapreneur and its concept, we're putting out something that, as like, again, you're inventors, we're inventors, basically. We invented this. It was kind of like a private secret thing we did, so this is sort of like something that we sold to big companies, like Duthie Ranker and Procter and Gamble and many others. And we decided to kind of make it available to you guys. And I'm passing on essentially my grandfathered in discount because I was a co-founder of HIT Laboratories. So normally if I was working with a client, like a bigger client, somebody like a TV company, or, somebody who had a product like from another country, or, a big company, I would be marking the services up quite a bit more. But what you're getting these at, it's pretty close to what we pay to just pay the team to do the work, because really I'm looking for winners. You're looking for winners. The goal is to not get you guys kind of hung up in services, because there's a lot of companies out there that will charge you services and want you to do all this stuff, good, bad, or indifferent. My kind of business model and what I'm teaching you, and again, I'm not a coach, this is a club, but my business model really is to show you what helped me be successful step by step in increments, so that you can kind of like at a lower level get some really good product market feedback to present the pitch in a way that people will say yes, to get some confidence in that item so that it can start selling and paying you. And I'm a really big proponent of not paying for services. Again, this is CEO to CEO here. You guys are all CEOs of your own companies. If you're going to pay for services, there are services that are important to pay for, but they should kind of result in distribution. They should result in transactionable proof. Now, when we talk about the surveys, this is something, Alex, I just wanted you to address real quick. I get a lot of questions on the surveys as far as like, do we ask people to actually buy the product? And I've answered everyone, no, we don't in the survey. And they go, well, why wouldn't we just try to sell it? One of the biggest reasons is we want to get thoughtful answers, and we don't want to put somebody into a situation where they're coming into the survey to give us thoughtful answers and then we're hitting them with something, because it actually decays the survey platform environment. That's one thing. But the second thing is it's good to get feedback from people that aren't being pressured to buy, because they give you more thoughtful feedback. And we actually will measure that out with the live tests. Like, so for example, we're doing that on Facebook, or we're doing that on, at a fair, a trade show, or in retail. We're able to extract, quicker, off the cuff, less thought out answers from people that have bought, right? Or that didn't buy. So it's a little bit more, lack of a better word, it's more natural, as opposed to manufactured, that sort of an interaction. And then what I like to do, and again, this is my personal preference as a marketer, I like to juxtapose what I learned from the live and what I learned in retail from hearing from customers with this kind of solid, research, platform portfolio that I get, which you guys will see, it's like 20 pages long. And, I'm able to really analyze how to take that information, put it back in the pitch, and really reverse out those objections so that we can build like a perfect kind of product presentation. So I don't know if I explained that right, Alex, but maybe you have other reasons why we don't do that. I think we can do that, but it doesn't always work out so well.
Yeah, basically you're right. Yeah, there's two main issues. One is that you taint the respondent pool if you start doing commercial transactions, and it can also violate the confidentiality or the privacy agreements that we have with them. So if somebody's answering questions on the survey, we want them to be very honest, give their honest opinion. But then if they then go on, excuse me, if they follow a link and buy the product, then we've just connected their responses with their identifying information, and that's problematic from a privacy perspective. And the second reason is that it doesn't really matter anyway, because let's say you have 300 respondents. Well, how many are you actually going to buy, right? Really? I mean, could you make 5 sales from that? That would be good, but it's only 5 sales. You want to make like 50,000 sales, right? So for the extra complications, it's just not worth the problem.
Yeah, and that's something too. So when we're doing research, one thing about research in general too is like, there's like, I've heard from other, inventors and, people out there, there's lots of companies you can buy like consumer product research from where they'll just like survey people for you. And as Alex demonstrated, you can also do that yourself. The main difference between what Alex and I do and what anybody
Yeah, I think Lindsay froze. I'm not sure if that's just me or everyone else. Yeah, it looks like that's everyone. Yeah, so I think Lindsay was saying that, and we'll wait for her to come back, but there's a lot of companies you can go through that will put you in contact with consumer audiences for testing products for the purpose of getting reviews, like 5-star reviews, different types. There's a lot of shady companies out there as well. And one thing you don't want to do early on is get into legal trouble by having people buy or review your product and post those reviews in a way that's not compliant with FTC regulations regarding endorsements. So this is a whole other thing, I know. But when you're making endorsements or when people are endorsing your product, they need to disclose the material relationships between them and your company. And so what that means basically is, let's say you send your product out to 100 people to evaluate it and then to post a review online. You can do that, but each person really needs to disclose that they received the product in exchange for writing a review online. And that's just FTC regulations, basically. So at a small level, again, it's probably not a huge problem, but it is not exactly compliant. I think Lindsay's back. Lindsay, are you here?
Alex, another question, just sorry. Okay, this product has been out for a while now, and there is a basis of marketing that has been done already. It's also been requested by QVC, et cetera, et cetera. I won't get into all the details. How do you take that and convert it into a marketing plan? You know what I'm saying? Because the thing is, it was wanted. Unfortunately, my partner at the time didn't have me, and number two, he took some bad advice. Okay, so this product was a good product. It's just in there, people. We didn't have Lindsay and yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, so a very good question, right? There's a lot of ways you can go. I should say right off the bat that at least from a professional perspective, from HIT Laboratories, what we do not do, we have to draw a very clear line about giving advice like consulting or marketing advice. With HIT Laboratories, at least in that capacity, we are only the voice of the consumer. So we let you know what people are thinking, and we can interpret that, statistically and with respect to other products, but we can't really tell you or recommend any particular course of action. And this is one of the reasons that we work with, in this case, with Lindsay, who is our research partner for direct response products, because she can actually take that research and then interpret it from a marketing perspective and help you create the strategies and the plans. So
to add to that, for Alex, like with us, what we would be doing then when we get all of the kind of statistical data, we can choose to take it one direction or another, if that makes sense, John. So like if you're taking it to QVC, there's going to be certain things that we're going to extrapolate and focus on, right? And then there's going to be other things we're going to not want to do. We're not going to want to talk about or share. It's just like if we're taking it to an investor, we would want to focus on the things where it talks about, like, what retail stores did these people shop in, or, have they ever bought from Facebook before? Things that like will indicate that it can make sales and it can sell in a certain place to a certain person at a certain price. Like the very, very basic information that really gives us that kind of presentation that would get someone to invest in a company or to buy the product and bring it in. There's certain things like we pull out, and that's what's great about this is it's the magical, what I believe this research really is. It's kind of like this magical roadmap that you can like make your own trail to like the pot of gold that you want from any rainbow, really, that you're following. So that's kind of what I love about it.
Yeah, so thank you, John. I wish I could answer your question with more detail, but unfortunately that's kind of the line we have to draw in order so that everyone knows when they're working with the laboratories, they know the difference between fact and opinion. And it's really important to keep that distinction. I think something that we all can appreciate.
And one reason that is important too, guys, is like, because for some people they might go, oh, well, I thought you were going to tell me more about like how my product's going to work, like fortune telling. Well, we actually are. And something that I learned a long time ago, humans have a way of tying like one event to another, to another, to another, right? Like case in point, I'm this type of way because my mom treated me like that and I had this crappy job and I'm dyslexic, right? Tie all these things together. Well, actually, that might not be true. What you have to do is you have to go to the first event, which is here's a product, it was invented, this is my baseline assumption, right? Done. Okay, that's done being messed with, right? That's a little scientific experiment that lives in a box like this, right? So the next thing we do is we're going to ask people, hey, we have this little science experiment in a box. What do you think? And they're going to say, well, I think this, because those are all pieces of other people's opinions that we don't want to taint, because we want the first most resonating moment that somebody sees that product to be given to us. So those are like all little layers, like I'm going to lay out over the top of my little experiment, right? But my experiment still lives in its box. It's not been transformed. It's not been touched. It still is the first thing that, like John Barrett, for example, you bring me your photograph thing. That's what that is. Now we layer on top of that all of those opinions of all the people that we meet in the survey platform, and they say, I like this. Okay, so now here's me, and I'm like the master collage artist, and I'm teaching you guys all how to be that way too. So we go, okay, well, these people said this, and these people said this, and these people said this, so that means this. And now we have a new experiment, right? So now we've got little experiment here turns into another box, but they remain untainted. So experiment 2 is, okay, we're going to take that, and now we have the Magic Photo Square Album Plus, right? Let's just pretend I just took all the features and things we learned and turned it into that. So now that product, we're going to go out and we're going to test live. We're going to say, okay, we need transactional information. Did everything we did in the online survey work live? Or vice versa. If we did the live test first, we would say, what did we get out of the live test? And we're going to take that and juxtapose it back to the online test and what changed, right? And the reason this is important, people might go, well, why do you have to do both? The reason this is important is because people, when they are online, they give a different response because they're by themselves and they are lacking bias. No one's pushing them into making a decision. There is no sales pitch other than that video and that presentation, which we do need a minor amount of sales pitch. But when we're live, you've got a couple different eyeballs looking at you. Maybe the inventor's there. They're in a hurry. Their boyfriend or husband might not be. There's these reasons why they're going to make different decisions here. And what happens is when we're there watching and we're videoing it and we're taking that information, not only are we watching what they're saying and writing down, we're watching what they're looking at, how they're doing it. We're looking at what other credit cards are in their wallet. We're looking at what kind of shoes they're wearing, what kind of keys they're carrying, what kind of family unit they have. We're learning a whole bunch of stuff that our research teams are writing down so we can actually build and create the proper customer, your perfect customer, to buy your product. Do you see how this gets exciting?
Yeah, and that's a very good point about experimental design ties into lean startup. So, I mean, when you do experiments, they should be proper experiments with a hypothesis and methods and results and everything properly arranged in accordance with the lean startup methods, which is what Lindsay is embracing in all of her things. And the reason that's important is because as entrepreneurs, one of the fundamental questions we can ask ourselves is, what is our advantage over the existing companies, right? The incumbent large companies. Because if we have no advantage, no competitive advantage, we should really just pack up and go home and get a job if you have no advantage. But we do have advantages. So it's important to recognize what they are and then play to our strengths. One of the big strengths we have here is that as an entrepreneur, like a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, you can move very quickly. So you can have an idea one day and literally have a company the next day to address a immediate market need. And you can pivot like that very, very rapidly, where a large company, like Lindsay mentioned, one of our clients got through Anchor, they have thousands of people, right? They've done Meaningful Beauty and Proactive and all those brands. And I don't know how long it would take them to really pivot on an idea. So that's one advantage that you have basically is pivoting really quickly, experimental design, and doing things with new methods that the larger companies haven't yet embraced. If you go to a large company, not all of them, but many large companies, you have people who have been in these R&D positions or marketing positions for decades, and they're still operating on the same assumptions and the same procedures and same workflows that they have been for decades because it's worked for them in the past. So your advantage as an entrepreneur is that you have new, more effective and leaner methods of designing experiments, executing them. And the key thing with experiments and lean startup is knowing what your assumptions are, right? So anytime you launch a product or a business in general, you have a series of assumptions and you need to create experiments to test and prove or disprove these assumptions. And so surveys, yes, that's one tool where you can address specific assumptions and prove or disprove. If you don't do that, unfortunately, you're building a very large kind of tower, right? You're trying to build a large tower of a business on a foundation of assumptions, which is shaky, and you can't build that high, right? Each level you go up, you have to prove the assumptions below it in order to have any confidence that you're doing a good job. And
Yeah,
even with yeah.
Oh, I don't want to stop you. Go ahead. Just after you're done with your thought, I want to add to what you're saying on that last point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can say this is a bit more on a personal or psychological note, is that entrepreneurs often, we like to think, or at least other people like to think, that we have, we have a lot of confidence in our ideas and we're go-getters and we're going to go in that direction. But self-doubt is a really big thing with entrepreneurs. And it's not a bad thing, because if you don't doubt what you're doing, then you're just bullheadedly going in one direction, right? So in order to have the confidence to go bigger, like to get the appointments with people, to ask for funding, to go to wherever you need to do whatever you need to do. In order to have that confidence, you need to prove to yourself that the idea is good, which means proving these assumptions. That's the only way you can sleep at night, I think. Okay, go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, plus one view on that. That was kind of something I was going to say, but here's the exciting part of this. So when you're looking at the baseline, which sometimes is the scariest part of this, because you're like, but my product does this and it does that. Like I just on the phone with one of my clients who has an amazing diet product that has like 300 claims, and we could sit and talk about all those great sales pitches all day long, right? But the key is you want to kind of look at everything like one by one. You know, you want to kill one by one, because you might come up with, here's a couple things that are like the 3.0 outcome. So let's say my friend with his diet product, he could come up with one that obviously is a dieting product and helps you lose weight, but maybe it also is a libido enhancer. So now you have like a Viagra product, right? Like there's all these wonderful supplement categories that you can get into in something like, for example, you have like Alex Langer on here with his mop. He has the first mop, which is his initial assumption, which is the back version. But then you also have just, let's add that to the microfiber. Let's add that to the PDA. Alex Langer could have 7 or 8 different SKU of his product that are in the marketplace that he invented, owns the entire thing, controls the source, controls the market, and disrupt the entire mop market, right? That's really cool. Same with Adrian with the blender, or Frederick with his coffee, or John with one of his many innovative things. Like we have so many people that have such great ideas, but I want you to not look at it as just the idea, which is the utility, but all the different pitches that you can create. Now, so some people would say, well, why wouldn't you just want like an all-around diet health cake thing? Because I can sell the same person 14 different SKUs of vitamins and health cake, versus I can just sell them one that does everything, right? So we know that that's definitely more lucrative, right? The second aspect of that that's interesting is it also helps us with knockoffs in the market, right? So if we knock ourselves off, essentially, it's harder for other people to enter the market because we already have the shelf space and are the perceived leader. And this one right here will probably be the one that will really get you guys going and be the most exciting. Is if you were at the event over the weekend, you may have had the opportunity to pitch to the investment panel, and you may have had a good response or not, or maybe it was kind of the first time that you'd ever done anything like that. And one of the things that I find that is really cool about this sort of learning is you can learn the endless bounds that your product and your idea actually have, maybe even beyond your wildest dreams, because you may have been just thinking about, you know, setting up a mop product and maybe licensing it initially, but then after you pitched to the panel the first time and you just sound like every other inventor, and then you learned all this stuff and you're like, maybe you would come back to the panel more like this time. Like, I'm Alex Langer, you know, 20-year engineering veteran. I'm a leader in the cleaning product business, and I'm about to disrupt the $2 trillion cleaning market with my new mop. Who's with me? Now, by saying that, Alex has now just created a whole new pitch and a whole new presentation that disarms a panel and makes them think that he has sold the product, that he's a leader, that he's legitimate, that he's amazing, that he's got this down. And he's literally created a whole new pitch for his product based on learning all these things that he learned. You see where you can kind of go with it? It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, I think I'm over time here, but I see one really good question by Alex Langer about, I'll just read it here because I'd like to touch on this. Can you show an example of a test that you ran and how it changed the product for the better market success? Can you tell us an example where you ran a test, said the product should do well, but then didn't do so well? So first of all, I should say we do have confidentiality agreements with all of our clients. So with about 90% of our clients. So I can't point to any specific examples, but I can definitely say yes. Yes, definitely. Because when you do a test, like market research, you do a survey, yes, the product can show that it's good. There is a market. People are interested. They find the product to be innovative, unique, useful, all these things at a good price point. But just because you have that can eliminate or reduce the market risk and the product risk. But there is always a huge thing called execution risk. And that's actually taking that and running with it. So it's a little bit like when you start with maybe an Indy 500, right? All the racers start with cars that are perfectly tuned up. They're the best cars in the world, but some of them won't even finish the race. Only one of them is going to win the race, because 500 miles later, a lot of things can happen down the road, right? So it's a very good way to get started. You don't want to start the race with a car that's sort of, with a flat tire, but it doesn't guarantee anything.
Yeah, exactly. And to just add to that, as you're learning about the research, the biggest thing I would say is you almost have to, as you get the responses back to these questions, those of you that are moving forward with doing hit lab research or doing your own research, you kind of want to just use that as a trampoline to innovate. Don't just listen to what consumers are saying and them say, oh, I want it pink or blue. Look at what's been good in the past, look at what the research is saying, and then look at your own internal assumption and find your voice, which is a blend of all of your experience and knowledge and a little bit of just kind of winging it. That's the thing that's cool about research is, we use it to kind of like tell us the best indication of success, but it's also kind of meant to kind of blend new and old. That's the idea. To really be a great innovator and an entrepreneur, you're connecting two worlds. So you are going into the unknown here a little bit, which is okay. I can say as a marketer that every product that I've ever been successful with, we put through this research and it was successful because of it. So I can tell you ShamWow, Slapshot, Sticky, Smooth Away, many of the others that I've done, Bottle Rocket, all went through this particular research and other methods as well that I teach in our courses, which again, this is just, like I said, the first or second step, depending on the type of world you're living in. So right now we're living in coronavirus world, so we're doing research first. We have always done that in the past. We do sometimes do live first as well. It just depends on what we're allowed to do at that point with the government right now. But this is a big part of why we're successful and how we can be successful. So that's why it's useful. One other thing I wanted to one of the people above was talking about Facebook. A lot of this information is very useful because you're tying together different consumer groups by attributes that they're reporting, you know? Like, so if somebody says, you know, I'm a single mom, you look at her like she's not married, she's, you know, makes about this amount of money. She, you know, indicates that she would mop, or she indicates that she drinks coffee, you know, whatever. We're learning about a certain target group, then positioned into, okay, she's the Walmart, or okay, she's the, you know, she's the venture capital partner that you're interested in getting a deal with. That's the person that they want to learn about. You see, so there's a lot of things we can extrapolate to help move the dial for you and move your brand forward. Furthermore, like with Walmart, we've had a test before where we brought a product in and the guy wanted to charge more money, and Walmart said no, and then we brought the test and they said okay. Like, so that helped to bring that average order level up too. So
Yeah, I was just responding to Frederick, who asked about logo design. Now, of course, the best person to speak with about logo design would be Lindsay. From a testing perspective, this is one of my favorite things to test because it's really fun and creative. But yes, you can survey test logos. You can do that in isolation, meaning let's say you have, let's just say 6 different concepts, and then you can test in a concept testing kind of methodology, what are the brand attributes that people are attributing to the logo that you're showing. So for example, let's say your product really needs to have a lot of trust. Maybe it's something medical or health related. So you really want to nail the trust, maybe the professionalism, but maybe with a tinge of modern or innovation or something, right? It all depends on the mix you're looking for. So you can test that. You can see by way of multiple choice response or different methods, what attributes people associate with each of the logos in your selection set. So that's one way to do it. Another way, very fun, is to see if the logo really makes an impact. Sometimes it doesn't, depending on the product, especially if it's a value brand. People don't care so much about the brand itself. So you can show respondents the logo in association with the product, your product. So for example, on the product, and you can do, again, concept testing. So maybe you have 6 different logos on the product. This is all done in Photoshop, of course. You don't have to make anything. And then you want to look for, in the survey, you want to look for the lift in perceived value or purchase intent that the logo creates. So the respondents don't know that they're part of a logo test. They just see the product with a logo, but you're getting the important data. So that's one way to do it.
One more question, Alex. On the okay, we obviously know on the packaging, but on our Facebook or on our web page, is it really necessary, or is it, you know, is there any benefit? And I'll ask this, Lindsay, to have the title of your product trademarked, and you show that it's trademarked or it's registered with the R, and also that it's patented. Is that any benefit, or is that just my perception?
To answer that one, if she's available. So the question is there a benefit to showing the trademark? Because this is basically a legal question, but there's also a marketing component of this too, right? So I can't, in my capacity, I can't really try and, you know, dispense legal advice or opinion. But there are considerations. Lindsay can speak to some of that. And she worked with some partners that are legal experts in that area of trademarks. So
yeah, sorry, I'm here. I'm just adjusting. I'm running the webinar too, so I'm adjusting some stuff in the background here. Yes, there are some times where in my capacity, I can't really try and, you know, dispense legal advice or opinion. Hang on one second, guys.
Oh, wow. I'm getting a long delayed echo. So I'm not sure if Lindsay's available right now or if it's me that's just frozen here. Yeah, there are aspects of trademark. I mean, generally when you just put a TM, it does not mean, I can say this with certainty, of course, it doesn't mean that it's registered. It just means that you are intending that to be your trademark brand. That is to say, common law trademark, which you have rights to without doing anything in particular, but only in a geographically restricted region, not on a national or international level. So that's when you'd be looking to register your trademark. But there is a marketing component of that too, which is how do people perceive something with a TM or registered versus not. So And, you know, again, this depends, in my opinion, on the type of product,
I'm
because,
back.
oh,
Sorry about that.
okay. Well, if you want to carry on from where I was, because you have more, better
Oh, sure.
experience with this.
So John, to answer your question, there are times when the trademark makes sense and there are times when it doesn't. I would say like early on, and again, I live in the world of, hey, I'm a marketer. I live on my assumptions. I use research as a median to create, you know, test experiments that can help me grow and expand that marketing or sales presentation, right? So there's times where I would want the trademark for here's two reasons. Let's say I had a trademark that was more male dominated for like a hair removal product, okay? Because I want to sell mainly to men, and it's like a blue logo and it looks like the military, okay? And then let's say I had another logo that I want to test that's like maybe pink and purple, and it's like for women between the ages of 18 and 25 for hair removal, right? That might be a time where that trademark would be really important, right? Because I'm trying to see if it's gender related, or can I get more money from women than men? Like there's different reasons, right? Why I might want to focus on that. And that gets us into more exhaustive research, which is, it's not really included in this particular test, but there are other methods of research we use at later times and sometimes in the beginning of a product to determine things like that for placement. Like maybe when we're going into retail, for example, maybe we need to prove something to a retailer, like that there could be a you know, a non-gender neutral product and we need 2 SKUs, right? There's lots of reasons though, or like maybe you're co-branding, like let's say you're doing the BMW versus the Mercedes, you know, window wiper product, right? Like that could be a reason when logos could play into it if you had a licensing deal, right? And the nice thing about this research is you guys are getting like a really good tidbit here of how to do this yourself, number one. So you could like, you don't have to necessarily use HitLab's research. You could go do this yourself and come back with some stuff and we can try to apply it to the pitch. Or you could use HitLab research, which we love and we recommend, but when you do that, now you have other options later for things that you can bring out when you need to. It's like when we're running Facebook media, we want to try to find a new audience. Sometimes we use the research to save on ads because it can cost us more to run media to get the ads. If we have an issue with like a buyer, they're like, well, we don't really know if that customer buys from us. We can do research to show that. And I can also tell you that research is very, very, very powerful in the legal world. So let's say you have a product that is, you know, a diet product or a supplement product or something where you're making claims. Research can be very useful to a court. If let's say, you know, somebody hurts themselves or gets in trouble or maybe makes the wrong ad claim, if we've already vetted people and we have information from consumers from the past that states that they feel some type of way, we've been able to testify as experts many times on things. So that's very useful too for legal purposes as well.
Yeah, and Hit Laboratories has had to be involved in some of that as well to do trademark testing regarding trademark disputes, because we can use a survey, and we have used the surveys to assess the likelihood of confusion, which is a real issue at heart with trademarks. And we've devised some other kind of unique tests that were accepted in court as defense in one case with a trademark case. So definitely, when you look at trademark issues, that is the question: is what's the likelihood of confusion? It doesn't really matter who had the thing first or whatever; those are all details. But are the two trademarks likely imposing on each other? And then if they are, who has the rights to that trademark, really? And so surveys can be used for that. Google searches can be used for that to some degree. Live, you know, testing. It all depends what the market is and what a court would find acceptable. Are you still there, Lindsay?
Oh yeah, sorry. I think there was one question that was last, and then I'm just gonna give a couple out to, I just broadcast the tail end of this in the open group just so they could hear. By the way, thank you so much, Alex, for staying on longer. Alex was only supposed to give us an hour, guys, and he stuck around, so thank you. Someone asked if we test by ourselves, how many people should we test with? Where do we find people to test with? That was a question, Alex.
Yeah, from Alex. Well, I can answer that very quickly. I know you came in a bit late, and maybe the best recommendation is to go back and listen to the beginning of the recording, because that's where the most detailed answer to those exact questions were. But basically, you can, you want about 300 people roughly to have any statistical significance in the result. And there's a number of places you can get the respondents if you're doing it yourself. That includes SurveyMonkey audiences. It includes your own social networks, your own email lists, or other response panel companies, which typically you're looking at about $4 per respondent, roughly, if you go that route. So it's about $1,000, $1,200 for the minimum response size, minimum sample size.
And the minimum sample size is based on the US population to get a 99% confidence level, by the way. So the less people you survey, the less likely it is whatever you're saying is indicative of the people that we're going to be selling to in the mass market. That's what it comes from. So thank you so much for those of you that popped on. This recording will be available in the Capitalization Club, which is the paid group. You'll see some snippets of it in the open group. If you have any further questions about research for Alex, he can be reached at alex@hitlaboratories.com. If you want to consider doing HitLab research to help take your product to market, if you haven't already, it's a really great opportunity, and you can sit down, set up a time on my calendar to talk about it, and I can help coach you. By the way, the reason that we offer these once a week courses right now for the Corona Camp, which is, I'm calling it, it's Corona Quarantine Camp really, but the idea is that we're trying to teach you guys how to be self-made in 8 weeks, which is just pretty fun, because the first one was about funding. The second one here is about testing. The third one next week I'm going to do, it's going to be on the lean canvas, kind of lean assumption building, which is really more of just like a workshop on how to kind of look at your product and your basic feature and benefit statements. And I'll be doing that with Mr. John Cremens from HSN, because we're going to talk about how these things have a lot to do with how you position your product to a live shopping channel and retailers, because we have to look in the early stages. And throughout the camp over the next 8 weeks, you'll literally see snippets and vignettes of how you can take a product to market. So if you had your product kind of sitting there, or the concept of it, you can kind of follow along and do a lot of this stuff on the side and come back in and report your results. Like, so for example, you could probably run a few surveys yourself after maybe listening to this. You also could call me and say, Lindsay, I want to run the surveys, and we can work with Alex. So if you want to find out how to do that, please feel free to reach out. We are going to talk about manufacturing after that, and I have some big news. It sounds like we're going to actually be running another live virtual event like we did last week in about 3 weeks' time. So that's going to be really exciting too. So I'll put some information out about that. Amazing thing to share with everybody. And I think that's about all. Alex, anything else from you?
No,
Any other questions?
That's great. Yeah. So thanks for the opportunity. I think I think I hope other people can tell. I really love talking about research. It's very exciting. It's very powerful. So I'm very privileged to be able to work with this and with you guys. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Alex. Any other questions, guys? Or we'll see you at the next one next Thursday around the same time. I'll be on talking about lean canvas, lean distribution. This is basically the way that you can save the most money and launch your product the fastest. So that's going to be a really fun one. All right, guys, looking forward to talking to you all soon.
Hey, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lindsay. Goodbye.
All right. Bye-bye.